Welcome back to the World-Based Builder channel. We're continuing our work here on Titan. The arc furnace is now outside to reduce the level of pollutants and volatiles we might introduce inside the base. And we have our electrolyzer set up and running, supplying oxygen into the base. So our immediate needs for oxygen have been met. Now it's time to move on and further upgrade our power system. Right now we're showing 4 blocks on our battery, but that's always subject to change, especially as we put more demands on the systems. It will continue to go down. So I'd like to look at what our options are for power. Our gas fuel generator is not running full time. We don't have a steady and consistent supply. So maybe the full-size wind turbines are our solution. The upright wind turbine does give you 200 watts, up to 800 in a storm, but I haven't seen any storms on Titan so far, so it's really 0 to 200 watts is what you can expect. The full-size turbine can go up to 500 watts, 10,000 in a storm, but again, you don't see storms on Titan. However, it does have demands on having more advanced alloys required for construction. Steel is pretty much always your first alloy. It's in demand. That's an extra challenge here on Titan because you need carbon in the form of charcoal, which means you have to have plants, and we're not yet at that stage. That will be the goal for today. So steel sheets, and just to create the kit itself is also going to require electrum. Electrum's not too challenging. It's just gold and silver at a modest pressure and a reasonable temperature. However, kind of a beginner tip here, it does say advanced furnace. So even though with the regular furnace you can reach those temperatures and pressures, it will not actually create the electrum alloy. It will basically give you just more of the junk that you have to then put through your recycler and centrifuge to recover the elements that you put into it, but you need the advanced furnace for some of the advanced alloys. So we will try to get to plants today so that we can build that charcoal, so that we can start with steel and go from there. Starting to build up a few refuse items here, for example spent cartridges that have no further use, additional tool belt which I'm not likely to use. I will keep the additional mining belt just because that's extra storage space for all the mining that I'll be doing, but I don't need 2 uniforms. I probably don't even need 2 of the glasses. So I'm going to set up a recycler here and see if I can recover some of the materials that went into their making. Alright, the recycler is built. I'm going to toss a small battery in here. I found very limited use for the small batteries. Even as a battery backup, it's such a limited capacity that it doesn't really warrant using an entire storage space for it, or even using them in the area power controllers. They provide such a small margin of safety that it's not worth keeping. I usually just start with a large battery and go from there. One thing that I'll find is that this will create reagents. Now reagent mixes can be stored in your mining packs, but in order to actually extract minerals from the reagent mix, you're going to have to send this through a centrifuge, and you may even have to do additional processing even after it comes out of the centrifuge. So one Stationeers life hack is supposedly using your spent food cans as a source of steel. It only generates 0.5 grams, so half a gram, so not really a big source of steel. I suppose it can give you a few grams early on if needed, but you're not really going through food that fast to make this a viable source for steel. You'll pretty much get to the carbon, charcoal, and making steel in bulk relatively quickly, so it's not really a useful hack as far as hacks go. So tossing a reagent mix into the arc furnace, as you can imagine, doesn't really do anything. It does need to go through a centrifuge to separate out the components, so that's the next thing I'll probably work on, is a centrifuge to try and recapture and reclaim some of these resources. Charcoal can be derived from pretty much any plant material. Others have used mushrooms. I think mushrooms are somewhat forgiving as far as their growing conditions, and so in some regards they're a good choice. I think their light requirements are also very minimal, as opposed to other plants which have a requirement for day-night cycles. I think mushrooms are a little bit more straightforward. There's a bit of boring gameplay here, so I'm just going to jump forward to printing out our furnace. So the initial furnace doesn't require much in the way of resources. It's all your basic ores, such as copper and iron, as you can see there. So achievable early on, and then will allow you to create your steel and then move on to bigger and better things. Temperatures inside of the electrolyzer a little bit above ambient. It was about -83 instead of -179. And the pipe between the ice crusher and the electrolyzer are continuing to store enough of a reservoir for the electrolyzer to keep working. However, when the new update comes out, where there's condensation and also solids, that is going to be a problem potentially for these pipes, because the water in the pipe can turn to ice and burst the pipes. So we'll see what that does to the base once that release comes out July 20th. We're going to print out a tank and a tank connector. This will be where we store our fuel that will be used by the furnace. Set up an ice crusher, an electrolyzer, and a fuel tank. The electrolyzer makes a perfect fuel mix, so it's ideal for this job. I'll probably also use this fuel for the gas fuel generator inside, so I'm going to put it in a place where I can pipe into the base and hopefully not run into anything else. Of course, as is always the case in Stationeers, you always end up coming up a few wires short. So I'm going to have to go inside and make a few more and then come back out and finish this off. I'll have to go ahead and collect some water ice so I can get the electrolyzer going, and then hopefully that will start generating my fuel. While that's going, I'll focus on building the furnace. So, as we all know, the Great Space Kraken usually gets you on the 3rd frame and shoots you up into upper atmosphere, but luckily Titan's pretty light gravity, so back down, continue working the frames. This is where the centrifuge will go, and also I'll move the recycler out here just to save floor space inside the base, and also make space for our future plants. So the centrifuge requires spin up time. It starts at 0 RPMs, and as you power it up and let it run, it will get up to 100 RPMs. It'll start processing reagents pretty much early on, but it gets faster at processing them as the RPMs increase up to 100. I'm going to go collect some water ice so I can get the electrolyzer creating fuel. So we'll go far out here, use our glasses, find those outcroppings of water ice. I'll also grab some gold while I'm out here, just to replenish our stocks of gold. We need that for the heavy cable, and I'm sure we'll need it for other things as well. A lot of times when I'm mining, I'll use the glasses to find the resource, but once I start the mining, I'll turn the glasses off. The Glasses burn quite a bit of energy, and so they'll go through batteries quite rapidly. Secondly, especially in the dark, it's hard to see if there's any outcroppings that are above your head. So if you're mining, you want to try and keep things from being over your head, because almost guaranteed you'll get an outgassing, which will shoot you upward, and if there's an outcropping above you, you will smash your head into it and have a bad day. So we have the water we were looking for. We'll go ahead and stock the ice crusher and thereby the electrolyzer and start making fuel. This tank is uninsulated, and even though the fuel comes out of the electrolyzer pretty close to 0 degrees Celsius, it rapidly cools off in this uninsulated tank. I don't really mind the fuel being cold. I want to keep it as far away from a flashpoint as possible and avoid explosions. However, when the new update comes out and condensation becomes a concern, I may have to revise my thinking. Here you can see where I used the water pipe from the ice crusher into the electrolyzer as a reservoir, so it has 5.6 megapascals, which is enough to keep the electrolyzer running for a while. The electrolyzer is quite slow, so throwing just a chunk of ice in there, letting it pressurize that water pipe, and just let the electrolyzer run from that, that's pretty much all it's needed. You can see I can put several chunks in here and it's still within the pressure tolerance of the pipe. So I've been running the gas fuel generator exclusively from these non-smart fuel canisters, and even though they don't hold a lot of pressure, they actually do last quite a long time. It's more than enough for me to heat the base and keep it at a maintained temperature. So it hasn't really required a lot of extra engineering besides just replacing the canisters once in a while. So the large insulated oxygen tank which I've had in here is kind of taking up a little bit too much space. I've already pretty much depleted it, so it's time for me to put it someplace where I have a little bit more room, which at this point is outside. So I'll go ahead and relocate it outside and put it aside for future use once I start having an excess oxygen supply. As you can see, it's pretty easy to read the tank pressure just by pointing at the gauge that's at the top of the tank. And as you can see, only 138 kilopascals. Like I said, the electrolyzers are very slow, but it'll be enough for us to fuel a furnace just to get up to operating temperatures and pressures. As you can see, our fuel canisters are running a little bit over 3 megapascals, so it's going to take a long time for the fuel tank to be anywhere close to 3 megapascals. We're only at 150 kilopascals right now, so we'll just let this keep running and probably continue to use the fuel canisters for the gas fuel generator inside. I do have volatile slowly collecting into this tank, and it's at 3.4 megapascals. I'm going to have to pair that up when I get some oxygen, fingers crossed, from the greenhouses that will eventually come. One shortcoming I've seen with my setup is that with the battery on the roof, I need to run outside and stare up at the roof to see the charge rate of the battery. So what I'd like to do is actually build a large battery down here at ground level, but it requires steel, electrum, stellite, so a lot of advanced alloys that I don't have right now. But if I build it at ground level, I can see the battery charge level through the windows of the base and also from outside. So I can see whether I'm gaining in power level or it's rapidly falling. So just to give me better insight and visibility, that's going to be one of my next goals. So here's our seed crate, and as you can see there are mushrooms. I'm also going to look at potentially other plants. There might be something that's more effective than the mushrooms. I also grabbed the heavy CO2 filter out of the rover. That'll actually last quite a while. I will probably switch it to being my backup reserve and just continue to use the low-level filters and keep the heavy filter as my filter of last resort. As you can see here, the pipe pressure is still over 10 megapascals, so more than enough to continue fueling the electrolyzer. So I'll just let that keep running. But the time has come for plants. So it's time to build the hydroponic station. The hydroponic station was actually included in this scenario. It was in one of the crates, so they do give you that to kind of give you a head start. It does have lights built into it and also can support 4 plants. So I'm thinking of putting it in the corner, but I don't think that's going to work out because it's a little too far from the water tank, and trying to pipe in the water to the hydroponic station is probably going to be more trouble than it's worth. There's too many wires and other pipes in the way. So I think what I'll end up doing is swapping it out for the hydraulics printer and put the hydraulics printer in the corner and the hydroponic station a little bit closer to the water source. So I just discovered one little drawback to putting the hydraulics station pretty much against the glass. When I go to print something, it shoots through the glass and actually ends up outside. So that's less than ideal, having to go outside to chase down everything I print. So I'm going to have to slide it over at least one space. Yeah, that's less than optimal.
Hydration critical.
So the shooting through the window issue has now been resolved by sliding it over one space. It'll just stack up there against the window but not go through it. So with a little creative plumbing, this hydroponic station will be ready to start supporting plants. The power's already hooked up, so with the water, that'll be the final step. I didn't select mushrooms as my initial crop. I will share in my next video which plant I do select. There seems to be a plant that is particularly well suited to the charcoal challenge, and I will share that next time. The pressure in the base currently is 39 kilopascals, which is a little bit low, and the temperature is 35 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit high. The plants have a temperature range and a pressure range that they're comfortable in. Usually it's 0 degrees Celsius up to 50 degrees Celsius, and about 25 kilopascals up to about 150 kilopascals, I think it is, depending on the plant. Ideally though, and there's ideal ranges as well, that's usually between 50 kilopascals and 100 kilopascals. And the temperature is usually between 20 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. So I'll have to adjust the base so that it's a little bit more hospitable to the plants, and that will also be the next video. If you're curious to see how this base held up to the July 20th, 2023 update, which introduced condensation and solids in pipes and has a really good way of breaking everything, I did actually do that on the Twitch channel. My Twitch channel is a few episodes ahead of where I am on YouTube. The YouTube channel here takes a little bit more processing, so it's a few episodes behind where my actual base is. So if you're curious, you can check it out on Twitch. And here I'll set up the recycler right next to the centrifuge where it makes sense to set it up, so you can just toss it in one side and it goes all the way through to the centrifuge. But with this, I believe that will conclude our episode for today, and hope you'll sign in next time. Goodbye.